Hello. Yes, good afternoon once again. And in the next few minutes, in the next 5 minutes or so, our panelists will join us for the program to commence. So we appreciate your presence here and your patience, and we'll be with you shortly. Thank you. Mr. Jana Penting. Nana Jana Penting, please, there's a seat in front for you. In the front row, please. Next to Mr. Ayubuafo, please. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A warm welcome to all of you on behalf of the Executive Director, Management and staff of the Institute for Democratic Governance, IDEG. This afternoon, we've invited you over to a forum dubbed Moderating the Airwaves for Peaceful and Credible Elections 2024. And the Institute for Democratic Governance is organizing this forum in collaboration with the Cybersecurity Authority, and that's to mark or to climax their National Cybersecurity Month of October 2024. And we're doing this in conjunction with the National Media Commission and supposedly the National Communication Authority. Before we get started, may I please crave your indulgence to rise with me for the opening prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we want to thank and bless your name for this afternoon, for this gathering to come and discuss issues of national interest. And we ask, oh God, Holy Spirit, that you come and take absolute control of this program and steer it to a fruitful and successful end. In Jesus' mighty name we have prayed with thanksgiving. Amen. Amen. You may please take your seat. So, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Patrick Richard Okai, and I'm lead for operations here at IDEG. For an important or august occasion like this, it is always best to have someone to moderate the program to its conclusion. And I'm delighted to introduce to you a woman whom I've known for a few years now. And I say this with pride because I'm a direct beneficiary of her knowledge and expertise in the Development Communications Master's class. And I quite remember one of my colleagues telling me that whenever he comes to class, he doesn't only focus on the lecture, but also focuses on the full package. And so I asked him, what's the full package? And he said, well, beyond the knowledge that this woman gives you, she also comes with her beauty, personality. And that gave me the sense of admiration that he had. I'm not saying me, I said he had. But of course, we all do admire her, and we are delighted that we all passed and passed well. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to read a brief of her profile, and it goes like this. She holds a PhD, and is the former head of department, that's the Department of Communication Studies at the University of Media, Arts and Communication, UNIMAC, and currently the Director, Center for International Relations, UNIMAC, and Senior Lecturer at the Department of Communication Studies, UNIMAC. She has over 14 years of experience in media and communication studies, and is widely recognized for performance excellence and contributions to success in the communication training industry. She is a focused researcher who is dedicated to innovative, dynamic, and organized work. She's published a number of scholarly articles in many reputable journals. Her research interest is in the field of political communication, political marketing, celebrity gender, and development communication. She is especially dedicated to studying the role of gender in politics and development in Ghana, and has been part of many projects and advocacy within this field. She has been, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, an active member of the university community and has served in several positions within UNIMAC GIJ, including chair of the GIJ at 60 committee, chair, council of convocation, head of research, and president of the UNIMAC chapter of the University Teachers Association of Ghana, UTAG. She is a member of the Political Studies Association and Celebrity Studies Group, and she is also a member of the IDEG panel of experts. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I have the singular honor, privilege, and pleasure to introduce to you, or to present to you, and so with a resounding round of applause, please help me welcome Dr. Laurentia Ejapong.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. And I will stand on existing protocols, and with your kind permission, I have been called here to just give a brief as to why we are here today. So since the return to a multi-party democracy in 1992, Ghana has successfully held 8 competitive elections with 3 peaceful transfer of power from the ruling party to opposition. But despite these successes, there is a broad consensus among interested parties that the nation's electoral system does need reforms. Over time, it has become evident that there are severe structural defects that require urgent reforms. The 2020 presidential and parliamentary elections were deemed transparent, peaceful, and credible, although a few infractions were identified by both international and local election observers. The European Union Election Observer Mission, for instance, identified gaps in Ghana's electoral process and made 18 recommendations to improve the credibility and transparency of future elections in Ghana. Now, one of the key recommendations, and this is one of the reasons why we are here today, that was made by the observers, is on limiting the role of the National Communications Authority, NCA, and transferring its licensing and sanctioning powers to the National Media Commission, NMC. The goal of this recommendation was to establish a sole and completely independent media regulatory authority that is responsible for allocating broadcast licenses, analyzing broadcast content, and addressing media-related complaints. These observations and recommendations are important because during our many election cycles from 1992, there have been significant abuse of the media space by political parties and the media organizations themselves. In fact, new and social media has heightened the abuse, which include the use of hate speech, disinformation to attack political opponents, the spread of fake news and propaganda, the use of social media to inflame tensions and incite violence, and the unfair coverage of the elections by some media outlets. Such abuse of the media space erodes public trust in the media and the electoral process and contributes to the outbreak of violence in some parts of the country, which ultimately undermine the integrity of the electoral process. Another major concern is the exponential growth of radio and television stations, which currently stand at about 550 radio stations and over 100 television stations. And for a population of 32 million, this raises a number of questions, especially since it has been observed that most of these stations are largely owned by politicians with well-known party affiliations. Now, such questions that occupy our mind include whether the proliferation of the stations have become divisive rather than unifying for our still young democracy. whether liberalization and increase in media organizations have impacted positively on the nation's democratic dispensation, whether the freedom to own broadcast stations, especially by political parties in decoy, provide the solution to the nation's challenges and inure to the benefit of the ordinary citizen, especially in terms of improved living standards through the dissemination of good content to address the needs of citizens. And the more worrying question on whether the emerging spyware technologies, cloning and hacking phone calls of political opponents and high-ranking officials is enhancing or harming our nation's advancement, or is it safeguarding our security and stability as a young democracy? In the light of these challenges, there have been various proposals in recent times to find lasting solutions to these situations. Such proposals include expediting the passage of the Broadcasting Bill, which seeks to transfer the power of administering broadcasting signals and licensing to a single independent institution to increase media accountability. But the other question is, can we then say that an effective collaboration between the National Communication Authority and the National Media Commission will become a much more preferable option to regulate and moderate our airwaves, especially ahead of the 2024 elections, in order for us to achieve the peaceful, credible elections and a healthy democracy that we seek as a country? How will such a mutual cooperation and healthy relationship between these two regulatory institutions look like, especially in the face of emerging threats to cybersecurity issues, including phishing and social engineering, data theft and extortion, configuration mistakes, artificial intelligence, and cyber threats and ransomware? Ladies and gentlemen, the African Center for Digital Transformation, ACDT, has warned of potential cyber threats to Ghana's December 7th elections and have actually urged stakeholders to take immediate action to safeguard the electoral process. And I think it's been covered widely in the media space. These emerging threats present an opportunity for the Cybersecurity Authority to use this forum to educate the nation of how they intend to improve cybersecurity as their contribution to our free, fair, and credible December 7th election outcomes. Ladies and gentlemen, it is against this background that IDEG, in collaboration with Cybersecurity Authority, has convened this Ghana Speaks Forum to forge a collaboration with key media regulatory institutions to inform the public about their shared role in moderating the airwaves for a peaceful and credible election 2024. The many questions raised in my submission so far speaks to the timeliness and importance of this forum in order to ensure that we provide a platform for key stakeholders to educate the public on their role in enforcing regulations to moderate the airwaves for peaceful and credible elections, to promote and enhance collaboration among media regulatory institutions, civil society organizations, and relevant non-state actors to collectively identify and challenges associated with media space abuse during electoral process, and also to facilitate an in-depth discussion among key stakeholders to explore proposals for addressing the abuse of the media space in Ghana. And finally, foster collaboration and consensus on the most appropriate and effective measures to address media space abuse. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the number of things that I have enumerated clearly shows that today's discussion is going to be a riveting one. And I'm excited that we have the experts who will help us to navigate this conversation. And I'm sure we are all looking forward to the discussion. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, I will welcome the convener of this forum to give his initial opening remarks so that we can set the ball rolling. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Akwete.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to all of you. With great pleasure, I welcome you to IDEG. I think many of you would know or follow our work in all the presidential and parliamentary elections. And if you recall, this election is one of 4 critical moments in the Fourth Republic. It is how everything changes when we get to the 8th year of the elections. And so far, our 2 dominant parties, we call them duopolies, have all served 8-year terms. We are 32, and it's an equal thing that they've all had. Now we've come to the point where we're going to see whether we could get a different situation. Could the 3rd term of, I don't know whether it will be 4 years or 8 years, but so far it's been 8 years each party gets. We don't know what the electorate's mind is, but what we know is that all the 2 parties want to start their next 8 years out of the results of these elections. And the question is, what would it take for them to achieve their goals? In the 2008, 2016, and 2008, 2016, and we're now going to 2024, the 3 periods, we would see that we always have issues. Will the parties play fair? Would vigilantes be stronger, or foot soldiers? We used to use the term foot soldiers, meaning we were not afraid of them. They wouldn't have guns. But now we're scared, and we're told that, vigilantes are armed. That's the statement that has been made. But we also know that we live in a time that our sub-region is also under some stress, either by jihadists or by various other forces with interest in the sub-region. Our country stands maybe alone as the country that many have confidence in, that will preserve our democracy and will be able to ensure that the election will take place in a framework of law and order and peace. But I'm sure all of you are also following the commentaries of the parties. For example, we've known from MPP, the governing party, saying that they want a 3rd term, continuous. They don't like the break for another 8 years before they come back. And what does it take? What would it take? We also know that the NDC said they have faithfully served the 8 years that you give way to the opponent, also a duopoly, part of the duopoly, a very gigantic, formidable contestant. And they also determined to have it. And you could see that their determination means that they are very prepared to play this game. Whether it will be peaceful or violent, we're all trying to work hard to ensure that it will be as peaceful as we've seen in 2016, even 2012, 2008. We have found ways of managing these processes so they don't explode. And we've all come back being applauded globally for being able to steer our parties into peaceful elections and outcomes accepted. Unfortunately, in 2012, we had to introduce the Peace Pact just to ensure that these 2 parties that now dominate the electoral landscape and our small or minority parties actually disappeared. They are not only representing in parliament, they are struggling in the game of these 2 parties as duopolies to find their space and to be able to attract us to vote for them, because they also have good plans for us. It's been difficult, and 2012 reminds us of how serious the competition was and the methods used to fight that. But for the Peace Pact, for the 8 months of adjudication of the presidential results, and citizens mobilizing to have a summit on the two parties accepting the results of the Supreme Court. We didn't know where we were going, but 2016 was a bit straightforward because the voters decided. We've done 2020, and we've seen how we now have two parties co-equal. We call it hung parliament. At the moment, one seat separates them. But we've also seen how even majority-minority cannot be defined where it lies. It could shift any time. And the stakes are high because those who have waited for 8 years, the NDC says, this is our time. We won't sit down. We're not going to sit down. And MPP also says, well, we think we deserve to continue this third term. Will they do it fairly? Will they do it with great respect to the decisions of the electorate? Will there be peace that our country has been known for? We are worried about some of the reports that we've had about armed vigilantes on both sides. We are worried about language like, I must have a third term consecutive, and therefore we are going to have it at all costs. And we are also worried that the NDC too says, well, as for this third term, we are the ones to come to power. How are they going to handle this? So when you hear that the tools by which these parties play their game is not just the rallies they hold, but we've had radio. Initially, it was radio, FM radio stations. We're told the numbers are high now. Some say 550, others are saying it's over 700. And we hear the license is awarded to them by the National Communication Authority. This time around, it looks like newspapers are not the favorite of the readers and those who want to know what is going on, but it is the FM radio stations. The question is, how are they regulated? And given what we are seeing now on the FM radio stations, the language, what they say, is it true, is it false, how could it mobilize people for negative reasons, and so on. But there's fear that through the radio we could see violence if the communication is that bad. But we're also told that cybersecurity, it's itself one of the things we should look at clearly. But the National Cybersecurity Authorities, we are told that has laid out clear framework for us to ensure that those who use cybersecurity, whether it's online and the various mechanisms, it will be in the national interest of peaceful and credible elections. Then we have the newspapers, probably dwindling a bit, but this is what we have. And our interest is to get leaders from these institutions to talk to us and assure us that we would go through these elections peacefully, with credibility, and with the confidence that we'll say it is the electorate that decides, not the parties and their radio stations or TV stations and so on. So we called you here that we think there should be interest in this subject, and they should see us, the voters, talking about these issues and expressing our preference. We don't want violence. We don't want a campaign that tears us apart in a way that it will be difficult to bring us together again. So this is what motivated us. The chairperson, as you know, has almost defined what it is, the objectives for our meeting here. In the university, I learned that when the professors speak, you can't do too much talking unless you expose yourself. So we are grateful she's accepted to do this, and our panelists are here. You would hear from them. I hope you're all prepared to ask difficult questions. And on that note, please, I thank you for coming, but let this event equip you and arm you to speak out against any threats to our peace and democratic stability. And let the voters' decision stand as truth that will lead our nation forward to its next level of democratic development. Thank you on that note. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Akwete. So next, we are going to hear something on the challenges with the airwaves from Mr. George Sapon, who is the Executive Secretary for the National Media Commission. Mr. Sapon is a lawyer and a journalist, so I think that if anyone is well versed to speak on this issue, then it is him. And he currently serves as the Vice Chairman of the United Nations Joint Staff Pensions Fund in New York, and also serves on the board of UNESCO Medical Benefits Fund in Paris. Additionally, he serves on the Council of the International Programme for the Development of Communication, and is also on the accelerator team that drafted trade and technology policy for consideration of US President Biden. He has worked on election issues extensively in West Africa, and he is the founding executive director of Youth Network for Human Rights and Democracy and the Party Youth Forum. He has taught in a number of universities, including the University of Ghana, the Accra Technical University, and the Ghana Institute of Journalism, where I am now, University of Media Arts and Communication. So it's my pleasure to invite Mr. George Sapon to come and talk to us about the challenges with our airwaves. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Laurencia. And first, let me thank IDEG for this opportunity and the other partners. But I also want to acknowledge the fact that Nana Janapenton is here, former chairman of the National Media Commission and also president of the Africa Communications Regulators Network. And then Mr. Yaobodu Ayaboafo, current chairman of the commission. And perhaps all of you great people, but I mentioned these two people not only because they've been chair of the NMC, but also have been in their own private lives, been engaged with these issues considerably. As I said, Nana chaired the African Regulators Forum, and the Messiah Boafo's story you all know. If you permitted me just one moment, I would say that the great story of his life and a lot of the contribution that he's made for the society, he's chronicled in his memoir, titled Achere, and is a trove of knowledge that I would want to recommend to all of us. Fortunately, there are copies outside. And thank you very, very much, Laurencia, for the kind introduction. I have a dilemma. Also, please, just because we are talking about communications and regulation, let me also acknowledge my younger brother, Kenneth Ashibe, who happens to be a very troublesome boy. He's hiding. Get up and let everybody see you. Otherwise, they will say I'm lying, you are not around. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a dilemma that you need to help me resolve. I have a dilemma to be politically correct and say the right things to you. But I also have an option to tell you the truth. So let us decide how we want to approach this matter. I want a vote. What do we do? To tell the truth. So please forgive me if it is uncomfortable or it goes against the conventional wisdom of the day. Can I have my... Patrick, can I have some? Yes. I asked for the water. And then the water comes and he doesn't want to give me. And because the water company is not sponsoring us, please, TV cameras, don't capture them. I mean those ones. I see people advertise bottled water for free at programs when they are not paying anything to support us. So I had to take mine. Okay, so I have a few slides that I want us to quickly run through to make the point that, am I going to get a pointer here to control it, or how is it going to? Well, the good news is that there will be lunch. So whether I talk or I don't talk, I'll have lunch. So let me stand here, and if the opportunity doesn't present itself, you will all be my witnesses that I've earned my lunch. But whilst they are waiting to show the slides, I'm talking to you about broadcasting regulation, okay? And I say broadcasting regulation only because here it is the most dominant. Afrobarometer estimates that in Africa and also in Ghana, about 70% of the people get their news and information from broadcasting. Across the world, the dynamics are changing, so people are getting information from different systems. But what I'm talking to you about is regulation of the electronic communications space for content generally. So the principles are going to apply all the same. And I'm trying to be very systematic so that all of us can follow the issues and understand where the problem is. Any luck with the slides? Okay, so let's just forget about the slides and let's try to see if we can follow the argument. When we talk about regulation of electronic communications content generally, there are only two things involved. Whether we are dealing with broadcasting, television, radio, film, or whatever, there are just two things involved. Number one is the technical parameters. So the frequency, how is it used, what transmitters, the transmitter range, how do you avoid interference and all that. That is level one. Level two is what we call the behavioral issues, the content matters, okay? What degree of exposure of the human body do you permit? Are we using physical parameters or psychological parameters? So if you took, say, Saudi Arabia, the degree of covering of the human person is a little more than typically what you find on a Western television station. So they are using physical tests for issues like pornography, lewdness, indecency. So depending on how much the body is exposed, they may consider the material pornographic, indecent, or lewd. What level of communication can you carry against the state in order not to be seen to be treasonable? Things like that. What can you say about different religions and tribes within a country? So everything about what you can say and cannot say, or what constitutes the permissible range of free expression, are the rules that constitute the second layer of the regulation, okay? So these two things put together make electronic communications regulation, okay? In putting them together, you can create a law that has both of them in one piece of legislation, or you can put them in different pieces of legislation. So you have one law on the technical issues and have another law on the content issues. What determines whether we put them together or we separate them? It depends on the policy of the state. So there are two main policy drivers: converged and non-converged regulatory systems. So when the country has a converged regulatory system, what it means is that you have one agency that is dealing with both the technical parameters and the content parameters together. So we say that's a converged regulatory system by policy. Countries like the United States of America, they have the FCC, which is the Federal Communications Commission. In the UK, they have the Ofcom. Patrick, you have said it or not me. He says that they are ready. And when I need a new slide, I should say next. So that's fine. Let's see whatever you have so that we can quickly run through. So I just spoke to you about technical standards and content standards. That make the soup of regulations. Next. And then I was talking to you about how do we frame the policy. And it depends on whether the country is running a converged regulatory system or a non-converged regulatory system. So I was explaining to you that when we talk of a converged regulatory system, you have the technical parameters and the content parameters all managed by one organization. And so you have one piece of legislation implemented by this organization. And I give you the examples of the US, the UK, and in Africa, the most prominent is in South Africa called ICASA. Please underline this organization called ICASA because it is going to be the source of some of the things that you are going to see. Next. So in Ghana, we opted for a non-converged regulatory system by policy. We created the National Media Commission to regulate the content. And then we created the NCA to manage the technical parameters. But the NCA doesn't just do that. It is the regulator for the entire communications sphere. Regarding broadcasting, their only involvement is to manage the spectrum. So technically speaking, NCA is not a media regulator. And it is the thing that I really want you to underline. So anytime people talk about what is happening in the broadcasting sector, and they tend to have very harsh expressions and sometimes concern about NCA, I'm not here to defend them. But I'm here as an expert, and I need to tell the truth. A lot of the things that we say about NCA is not their fault, and a lot of it is misplaced. But that is also not to defend them. I started by saying, I reached an agreement with you to speak the truth, and not to be political. Technically, people think that we are a rival institution to NCA, so when people bash NCA, we ordinarily should be happy. But we owe you the truth to explain to you that some of the things that the people say. Next. I can't see. Actually, I don't need to see George Sapon. I want to be able to read. So, please let us come back. I've taken my time to explain to you that there are two sides to the regulatory framework, okay? In Ghana, we have all the technical parameters. We have all that we need in terms of legislation. So we have the NCA Act, we have the Electronic Communications Act, then we have the Electronic Communications Regulations. So everything about the technical side of the regulation is set. So when people say there is no broadcasting law, it is partially not true. Okay? Again, this is a statement of fact that I want to tell you as a matter of truth. So when you hear people say there's no broadcasting law, it is not entirely accurate. The truth is that one side of the law is fully set, which is the technical side. Next slide. Next slide, let me see something. Okay, so go back to the previous slide. There's a slide missing there. I wanted to just show you that the only thing that is left is to set the content side of the rules. I hope you can follow this very simply. Now, when Ghana had to address the problem, Instead of systematically trying to understand this, they went to do something else. So we have the National Media Commission Act. There's something we call the 6-month laws. How many of you are familiar with the 6-month laws? Okay. Under the 1992 Constitution, Parliament was enjoined to set up a number of institutions 6 months upon coming into force. This included the National Media Commission, NCC, and a few things. Because the Constitution had forced them to do this, Parliament was new. They had no experience. The matters they were dealing with were technical. They didn't understand, they had no expertise. But they still had to force to set up. So they passed a National Media Commission law that they didn't understand the policy options and the technical questions that they were addressing. Do you understand? So that fundamentally is part of the problem that you are dealing with. So when we got the chance to address this question about the content side of the problem, we had two options. Option one was either to amend the NMC law that was passed in a rush because the Constitution had said it should be done within 6 months, or take the NMC Act as it existed and pass a law that addresses the content issues, knowing that all the technical parameters, we've set them up in the Electronic Communications Act. I hope you are following me. What did Ghana do next? We decided that we're going to pass a broadcasting law, which meant that we're now going back to now create new rules on technical parameters and add content rules. Okay? So the first major problem you are creating is that the new content, technical parameters you are setting up were going to be in conflict with the Electronic Communications Act and its rules. Do you see the point? The second is that we have a non-converged policy environment with two institutions, but you are forcing yourself to pass a converged piece of legislation. Please, are you following the analysis? So straight away, you completely got it wrong. And it was never going to work. This is the key reason why I suspect, I don't know for a fact, if you were a minister and you came into office with the enthusiasm to address this problem, the moment you began to understand the field, as you got involved with ITU, UNESCO processes, you came to discover that, really. Worse than that, the technical provisions that we put into the draft of this were far less in quality to the Electronic Communications Act. The Electronic Communications Act had anticipated the evolution of the technology. This piece that we put together had not. Why did we make that error? A couple of minutes ago, I told you that you should underline ICASA. By the time they started this, and it was driven by civil society groups that were concerned about something other than what people think this law was originally proposed for. When we started work on the broadcasting law, it was simply because community radio stations didn't have enough frequencies. And people thought that if you move the frequencies to the National Media Commission, where you have broad-based representation, there could be fairer distribution in the 3 tiers of broadcasting, public service, commercial, and community. So, in my view, the people who were leading this process were good people, good experts, with good intentions. But we missed the orientation. So, as I've said, you've gone to pass a converged piece of legislation on you are seeking to pass a converged legislation on a non-converged environment. 2 is that you are replicating technical parameters that are not as forward-looking as your existing legislation. So what did the National Media Commission do? We decided that in order to avoid all these complications that the people were running through, because Ghana has all the technical rules we need in the Electronic Communications Act and the regulations, and what is outstanding are the content parameters, we decided to pass a content instrument to address the content side as a complement to the technical rules. So we set up the content standards in electronic communications. It was widely misunderstood. So it was taken to the Supreme Court. We strongly think that the Supreme Court didn't understand what was before it. I will say this in all honesty. So the court gave a ruling that struck the law down. But something else happened in that ruling. The court read into this ruling things that didn't exist in the law. For example, the court said that they disagreed with the law because the law required that broadcasting stations needed to produce their content and bring it, their program's content, to NMC to approve. There is no such thing in the law. The reason why that happened was because, for those of you, we passed this law in 2016. Those of you who follow electronic communications issue, this is the time when the big platforms had begun to do their things. As soon as we passed the law, the law would have required that all of them would set up offices here in order to go through the processes. They came to see us. They were ready to do that. A couple of things happened on social media. We won't get you into this. So that thing that we say is not in the law, but found itself in the judgment, were claims that were being made on social media. But that is neither here nor there. Again, what did the court do? I have explained to you that the broadcasting law that they were trying to put together had content side and the technical side. The technical side I've explained to you were not as good as what exists in the Electronic Communications Act. So when we decided to pass the content standards instrument, all we did was to select all the content parameters in that law and to pass it in this instrument. So when the Supreme Court said that those rules are unconstitutional, it meant that in one fell swoop, half of the provisions in that broadcasting law had been declared unconstitutional. Please, are you following? So on one hand, the technical side that exists there are not progressive enough. And on the second side, the content standard, the content part of that law, the Supreme Court has said is unconstitutional. So when you hear people say, we need to pass the broadcasting law, they are making a statement of ignorance. And this is why I pleaded with you whether I should speak truthfully or politically. You understand? The broadcasting law, as it exists, is driven more by the prestige of its supporters than by the force of its logic. Anybody who has worked in the industry as we have does not waste its time or his time on the issues as they stand. So going forward, what do we have to do? Next slide. These are other reasons why we passed the content standards, but I'm not going to talk about them because we don't have time, and they are very technical. Next slide. So I've already talked about this slide. Let's go to the next slide. And I'll just explain to you that, come back to that. I've explained to you that the content part of the broadcasting law has been struck down through the decision of the Supreme Court. And I've told you that the technical part are also somewhat archaic or inferior to the Electronic Communications Act. Let's go to the next slide. Now, these are the emerging realities that I'm not going to spend time to talk about. When people speak of social media generally, they are talking about a bundle of complicated realities that I wanted to explain to you, but we don't have that time. Suffice it just to say that when they say social media, again, because it is packed like that, a couple of statements are made around it and what can be done that does not demonstrate an understanding of that reality. But you don't have time, so let this slide go. So I'm just trying to round up on this for all of you, but please look at this slide very carefully. I showed you the previous slide where I said there are a lot of complications within the emerging communications regulatory framework. So there's a global response. We are proud and happy to say it started from our law that the Supreme Court said is unconstitutional. And we would encourage you to look at it. The law that we passed, that was the first time that any country was putting responsibility on platform owners or network operators. So our law had nothing to say about journalists at all. It didn't target journalists. It was just targeting the network operators and the platforms. The idea is that in media regulations, if you want to deal with people, you can deal with 3 levels of people. Either the owner of the company as a person, the company as a legal entity, or the journalists who are working in. We always say that laws that target the journalists create a chilling effect because it puts fear in them. The best legislation targets the company so that the company itself would put in measures for gatekeeping to ensure their content is right. So we were the first to set up a law that places responsibility on the network operator or the platform. The Supreme Court struck our law down in November 2016. The following year, June, Germany passed the network enforcement law, which was, in terms of philosophy, exactly what we had done here. Our work was supported by the European Union. So we had shared our thoughts very widely over the world at the forum of the ITU, UNESCO, the International Institute of Communications. There is nowhere in the literature of the German law that says that they picked the idea from Ghana. Nowhere. And we make no such claim. We are only presenting 2 sets of realities to you. That our law, the Supreme Court struck it down November 2016. Germany's law was passed 6 or 7 months afterwards. Okay. Now the law that Germany passed has become the standard in the whole European Union, called the Digital Services Act. In the United States, they've taken a different route. Those of you who followed these issues would have noticed that last year there were 2 seminal cases, Google versus Gonzalez, and then Tammany versus Twitter. Lawyers will say Tammany and Twitter. These 2 cases presented opportunity for the US Supreme Court to revise its rules. But we say that the big platforms are the new gun and oil lobby in the US. Because they are so powerful, the US is going to struggle for a while as far as we are concerned. But even that, as we speak, there are at least 56 proposals in Congress seeking to change the law in the US to look more like what the EU has done and what Ghana had done in 2016. So this is where we are. What's the way forward? Next slide. We don't seek to offer any profound advice. What we have tried to do is to analyze and explain the things to you. So it's fairly easy for you to make up your mind and to see which of the options you favor. We can continue working on the broadcasting law. We have no qualms about it, except that we will be honest to point out to everybody that that law has what we have explained to you. Excuse me. The next choice we have is to amend the NMC Act to improve the content regulatory issues there, since all the technical issues are already set in the NCA law, in the Electronic Communications Act, and in the regulations. But that is expensive, and that takes time. For those of you who know how legislative instrument is done in Ghana, it's a much easier route. You put the instrument before Parliament. Parliament has 21 days either to annul or it passes. So that is the next line. We believe that the easiest way to address the issues about the content standards in the airwaves is to revisit the, or maybe I'll withdraw my recommendation. Because I posed the question, Koire Ghana, which way would Ghana go, or should Ghana go? And it seems to me that each one of you can have your own thoughts about how to address this. As far as we are concerned, it is not a complicated issue to address. If people took their time to understand the issues and what needs to be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. George Sapon. I think that has been a very interesting one. I've gained a lot of education. I had some misconceptions about what was happening with NMC and NCA. I think I now get what is happening, and I'm very happy about your presentation. And I'm sure we are all going away from here with the thoughts of what steps should Ghana take. If we are all concerned about what is happening on our airwaves, then we need to consider that. Next, we will have a short presentation by the Cybersecurity Authority Rep, the Senior Manager, Mr. Joseph Entry Ato, who will tell us a little bit about the work of the Cybersecurity Authority. Thank you.
Thank you. The Cybersecurity Authority, due to this year's upcoming elections, our Cybersecurity Awareness Month, we try to couch our theme around misinformation and disinformation on our cyberspace. So I'm going to go through some short presentation, if it is ready. Next, please. Okay, so we are going to look at Ghana's internet landscape and also cyber threats to elections. And we are going to look at misinformation and disinformation, its impact, and the techniques being used in misinformation and disinformation, as well as some legal provisions on misinformation and disinformation. Okay, so currently we are a population of about 34 million, and we can see that that's in Ghana. Connected devices are around 39 million, right? So our connected devices on the internet are more than what? Our population, because some are using yes, because we have more than one devices per person. Someone is using an Android, an Apple plus laptop now. We have smart TVs. Our refrigerators are even what? Smart. Therefore, the connected devices are many. Next, please. Next. Okay, so with the daily time spent using social media, currently, in the whole world, Ghana is 15th, ranked 15th. Yes, it means that we are very, very active on social media. 2023, we were 8th, and 2022, we were 3rd. Yes, I think our brothers from Nigeria, they've been consistent in the first position, but this year, Kenya are first, right? So, we are very active on social media, so there is the need for us to put things in place, controls in place, or how we can protect ourselves on social media. Next slide, please. Yes, so let's look at some cyber threats to the upcoming election. The major one is disinformation and misinformation campaigns, which I'll talk more on that. Again, deep fakes and AI, video manipulations and all that. Right now, even the mainstream media, well-known media houses, people are picking their logos and all that, and they are developing deep fakes using AI to make it look legitimate to the public. And with the upcoming elections, this can be leveraged. You could see an AI-generated video in the EC chair, like giving the election results, even before she herself comes to give the original results. So we need to be careful. And no, previous. We have phishing and spear phishing attacks, right, where targeted people or VIPs can be targeted with election-related items, and they can what? Thank you. Yes, they can leverage the phishing attacks in what? Harvesting data, right? These emails might not be true, might not be correct, but they will couch it around election-related news in order to what? Make them click it and harvest data from them as well. We are looking at distributed denial of service attacks. On the election day, the website of the EC can go down. And this is done deliberately. This is a type of attack where malicious traffic is flooded with the EC's website, where the official result might be displayed, so that when this is down, then they have the chance to misinform the public with their own results. And of course, we have insider threat as well. So what is misinformation and what is disinformation? Misinformation is the spread of incorrect information, right? So you are in a certain WhatsApp group, the information is in, and you are also sharing it without you verifying, right? Now, disinformation is you deliberately, you know that the story is not it's not true, but you want to create confusion, you want to make someone unpopular, so you sit down, create that information and try to spread it. 2009, 2010, who remembers the earthquake thing? That earthquake is coming from the sea. They made us go to the park, and yes, typical example of misinformation. Yes, disinformation, thank you. Now, the impact of misinformation and disinformation. Polarization. Already there's a political divide, right? And when this goes on, it only deepens it, right? And it will be difficult for us to find a common ground on issues. Erosion of trust. Our electoral commission, the more we put out things or we misinform people, they don't have the trust for them to conduct credible elections as well. And of course, it can influence the decisions of voters, right? The more people engage in propaganda, it can equally have effect on voter decisions as well. Now, the techniques of disinformation and misinformation, mostly they use fake news, right? Fake news. At first, they will create online account purposely for that. But I might say that with time, some of the mainstream media too have been involved in misinformation. Please, who knows Chef Smith? The Chef Smith story. We had respectable media houses also reporting that he has what? Won the award. They didn't what? Verify, right? But the good thing is, these media houses will later come back and say, no, we made the mistake, right? But the malicious ones will never come and say that, yes. And impersonation. So it is possible to even impersonate the EC's social media account. Someone they will set an account in the name of the Electoral Commission and even the chair, right? And they will be putting out news which is not from the organization or the individual. Now let's look at the channels for spreading misinformation and disinformation. Email campaigns, search engines, traditional media, and social media accounts. As I think I've touched on the social media account and all that. Now, website. When you Google EC's website now, you find other websites that appears to be what belongs to the Electoral Commission, which is fake. Even BBC, their site that we have BBC Ghana, they've cloned the logo of what? BBC in order to spread this misinformation and what? Disinformation. Next please. Okay, so why social media? Of course, now everybody is on what? Social media. So there are numbers there. They will get what they want. And they know that once it gets there, it's going to go what? Viral. So they will add sensationalism to the news item for it to what? Go what? Viral. Next, please. Okay, so how do we combat it? Now we know that this is what? A problem that can arise with the upcoming what? Elections, right? Now we need to cross-check multiple credible what? Sources. I believe that when the information is true, if a media A is reporting it, media B will also be reporting it, if it is really true. So we need to check across multiple sources to see if all of them are reporting similar what? Stories. That's one. Then we also have fact-checking sites like Fact Check Ghana, where they verify information. If it is fake, they put it there that is fake. If it is authentic, then it is authentic as well. Then we should be wary of sensational headlines that are too good to be what? To be true. Sometimes you see the image of a presidential aspirant there. You open the story, it has no connection with the image there, right? Yes, and also we need to employ visual tools for what? Debunking this. There's something called image reverse search. When Google has it, I think there's thineye.com too as well. When you reverse search the image, it will give you where those image has been what? Used what? Before. Now, with the upcoming elections, people are going to pick videos from 4 years ago, right? That people are probably causing confusion, picking up ballot boxes, and they are going to post them again this year just to misinform what? People. Okay, so this is one of the sites that we came across, that the Electoral Commission has purchased an electronic voting software to manipulate the upcoming what? Elections. So it's like the software is then when people vote, they will just manipulate the result and all that. And this gained some level of what? Traction as well. Okay, so this is the BBC website I was talking about. So this is fake. They just cloned this one, right? And Ghana Election Commission website. Do we have Ghana Election Commission? Yes. So these are some of the things we have to watch out, right? Sometimes they are write-up, there are a lot of what? spelling errors and all that. But now they are smart. They also use AI to do the write-up before they post it. Yes, so these are some legal requirements around the misinformation, disinformation, the Electronic Communications Act, some sections of it, then the Criminal Offences Act, and also the right to information, some part of it which touches on misinformation and disinformation. Okay, so this is our point of contact prior to elections, during the election, and after the elections. If you come across any misinformation, disinformation relating to this election or any other cybersecurity incident or cybersecurity crime, you can reach us at 292. On 292, you call 292, or you send an email, report@csa.gov.gh, or you can send us a WhatsApp 050-160-3111, and there's a team that works 24/7 that will respond to your call. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Please, it's important that you note the right website for the Cyber Security Authority so that you also don't end up falling prey to cyber attack. So make sure that you are going to the right site. And I am very passionate when it comes to mis and disinformation because it has the tendency of destabilizing nations. So it's very important that as we are going into election 2024, December 7th, we pay attention to the information. I know we all get very excited when we receive message by WhatsApp and we are quick to forward the message. Please, before you forward, cross-check the information. Make sure that whatever you are forwarding is the right kind of information because what you are forwarding can cause a whole lot of violence, and we don't want that happening in our country. So thank you very much. Before we go to the second session, I have a few announcements. So the driver of silver Toyota Prado, GE8868Z, please step out briefly and attend to your car. There's somebody who is trying to remove your engine. So quickly go and see to it before the person takes your engine away. Thank you very much. I think that will draw the person's attention to go and attend to it. Before we continue, there are a few acknowledgements that I want to make. We've had some very important people joining us today. Please forgive me if I pronounce your name wrong, because I'm really struggling to read what has been written for me. I'm not wearing my glasses. I wanted to look very beautiful today. So I decided not to wear my glasses, so I can't see very well. So we have Mama Atrato the second. Is it correct? Yes, Queen Mother of Ho Domi. Thank you very much for coming. Then we have Nana Jan Apenting, the former chairman of the National Media Commission. Thank you so much for coming. And then we have Dr. Angela Abuaji, Domina Abuaji, the chairperson of the Civic Forum Initiative. Then we have Commodore SB, is it correct? Please, the military people, they are very particular about the way they go about things. So, SB Nyam, Ghana Navy. And then I can see a DO3. Is it DO3? Yes. Imbia Jeffrey, Ghana National Fire Service. Ghana National Fire Service, I have a conversation with you. I think I should let you do this. Since it's your writing, I can't see anything.
Okay, so very quickly, the acknowledgements continue. Miss Valerie Wemizewski, is it Wemizewski of the U.S. Embassy? Wemizewski. J.P. Bando, European Union. Thank you for coming, sir. Sheikh Dr. Armiyao Shaibu, spokesperson of the Chief Imam.
Let's call me doctor, I'm not.
Right, okay. Thank you. Mr. Fred Anson, OHCS. Thank you for coming. Reverend Kingsley Ohiniba Amwa Isihini, Executive Director, WANEP. Thank you, sir. Apostle Emmanuel Tete, Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council. Thank you, sir. He's also a member of the Civic Forum Initiative. Professor Akosia K. Dakwa, she says Dean at the University of Ghana. Professor, oh, she's behind. Thank you, Prof, for coming. Mr. Akwesi Otua Penting, Small Arms Commission. Hello, sir. Thank you. Dr. Ken Ashibe, CEO, GCT. My very good friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much for coming. And I must acknowledge, I've seen quite a number of my students, both current and former students. I'm very happy to see all of you. And I hope what I've been teaching you in the classroom, you are using it in your work. Otherwise, I'll hold you accountable. Thank you very much. So we are moving on to the second stage of this forum, which is going to be the panel discussion. Now, I know that time is fast spent, so we will not spend too much time asking them questions from the moderator. What I'll do is that I'll just ask a few initial questions, and then we will have the open forum, because I know that you have a lot of questions for our panelists, so that we can actually crack open this whole discussion that we want to have. So our first panelist is the chairman of the National Media Commission, Mr. Yao Wedru Ayeboafu. Thank you very much. Our second panelist is coming from the Cybersecurity Authority, Mrs. Jennifer Mensah, who is the lead for legal and compliance, and she's here representing the Director General. And then finally, of course, we cannot have this discussion without our very own Dr. Emmanuel Akwete, the Executive Director for the Institute of Democratic Governance. Thank you very much. I'm hoping that while the discussions were going on, you would have noted down your questions. We will get to them very quickly so that we will have a very vibrant discussion. Okay, so we are going to replace Dr. Akwete with Mr. George Sapon. The reason being that you presented a very interesting point of view, and I know that people would want to ask you more questions. You were not able to do complete justice to it because of time constraints. So, Mr. Sapon, thank you. Thank you very much. Can we all do mic check and see if we can be heard?
Hello. Hello. Can you hear me? Yes. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Hello? 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 Okay, thank you very much. I think we are ready. Thank you all very much for staying with us for this second session. So this is going to be a discussion. We'll get to ask questions so that our panel of experts can provide some more answers and eye-openers to what is bugging our mind about how to manage the airwaves for election 2024. So my initial question will be to our panelists from the Cyber Security Authority. From the presentation from your colleague, very interesting. What I wanted to find out from you is that what are some of the strategies that the authority has put in place to safeguard election 2024?
Thank you for your question. And warmest greetings from the Director General of the Cyber Security Authority, Dr. Albert Intribusiako. He would have loved to be here, but he had to attend to other equally important national activities and asked me to come and represent him. I also want to say thank you to IDEG for holding this very important, collaborating with the CSA and the NMC to hold this important program to educate the public. So before I take your question, let me put things in perspective, and I'll do a little bit of education here, starting from the point of what exactly is cyberspace, and for that matter, what cybersecurity is and the role of the Cyber Security Authority. When we talk about cyberspace, it's basically, an interconnection of computer systems, a virtual world that has been created as a result of interconnection of computer systems and other internet-dependent devices, such as routers. And this virtual world enable communication and other activities, take place in the cyberspace. Now, cyberspace has, certain characteristics that makes it important for our conversation today. One of the key characteristics is that it is global in nature, in the sense that it has a global reach. In our world today, per the International Telecommunication Union, there are about over 5 billion internet users. And so because of that global reach, whatever you put on the internet, has visibility. Apart from that, it is borderless in nature. In the traditional sense, every country, has borders. But the cyberspace, transcends borders. It's made the world like a global village. I can be right here in this room and access a database that is on a server sitting in the United States of America within a split second. And so it has, it's borderless in nature. It has that global reach. Apart from that, some of the properties include spreadability. When things go into cyberspace, it spreads like wildfire because there are certain properties, on the platforms on cyberspace that allows people to share information easily. Another property is persistence. When information goes onto cyberspace, it stays there for a long time. Sometimes some information people put in cyberspace can come back to haunt them. Supposing somebody was young and put some information on cyberspace, and maybe years down the line they want to climb up whether the political ladder, corporate ladder, somebody could just go for, if it's an information that is negative, could just fish it out. Whereas maybe if you compare like the airwaves, once something is said, it goes. But on social media or cyberspace, it stays there. Apart from the spreadability and persistence, searchability is also another property. Because of search engines like Google, people can easily search for information on cyberspace. So because of these properties, it is very important that people are quite mindful of the things they put online. My colleague spoke about misinformation, disinformation. You need to verify the authenticity of information before you put it out there. Now, apart from that, cyberspace is essential to modern life. It has become part of us. It influences our communication. It influences the way we transact business. It influences our day-to-day activities. And also, there is, that conscious effort by countries, including Ghana, to, integrate the usage of computer systems in critical, services, including government, services, private services. And so certain critical services have also, moved online. Like, for example, the electoral process we're speaking about, there are computer systems that are used to manage the electoral process, and they are, connected to this cyberspace we speak about. Financial, services, healthcare, energy, all these critical services have one way or the other been automated, and so you have that critical services, online. Now, in as much as cyberspace, we've become dependent on cyberspace and its influence in communication, business transactions, there are also, cyberspace is not always, that safe. There are certain vulnerabilities in cyberspace that can be exploited. When my colleague was doing his presentation, he showed, the slide on cyber threats. For example, ransomware, phishing, denial of service attacks, all these things, affect the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of computer systems and data. So some of these, threats can, cause information that is sensitive to government business or sensitive to private business to fall into unauthorized, hands. Or there could be a situation whereby a cyber threat could render a computer system not to be available to legitimate users. And that is what a ransomware, attack can do. It can render information not available to legitimate users. And so when legitimate users want to have access, that ransomware is a type of malicious ware that, malicious persons could use to render information unavailable. In this current time that we are, for example, let's say the database, maybe for the electoral process, God forbid, could a ransomware, render that database unaccessible? So it is because of some of these, risk and threats that are in the cyberspace that the Cybersecurity Act was passed in 2020 to establish the Cybersecurity Authority with a mandate to regulate cybersecurity activities in this country and promote the development of cybersecurity. And some of our objectives is to prevent, detect, manage cybersecurity issues. We work together, we collaborate with relevant institutions, relevant government institutions, as well as industry players, because like I said, the cyberspace, it has global reach, it cannot just be the responsibility of one institution, and so collaboration is key. We collaborate to secure the cyberspace, as well as, regulate cybersecurity service providers, cybersecurity professionals, cybersecurity establishments, and critical information infrastructure. So in a nutshell, that is the role that has been conferred on the Cybersecurity Authority by the Cybersecurity Act. Now, what are some of the strategies, I believe that was the question, that the cybersecurity, yes, has put in place?
2024.
2024. All right. I'd like to put these, measures in, let's say, 5 main buckets. Okay. So they are capacity building measures that we have put in place, and that is by way of creating awareness of the cyber threats that have the tendency of, disrupting or negatively affecting the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of computer systems and data related to the electoral process. And so as part of our mandate, we create awareness to stakeholders, businesses, government institutions, which includes, stakeholders that are involved in the electoral process, children, and the public institution. We create awareness on the cyber threats that are out there in the cyberspace and what measures can be put in place to mitigate these threats. And throughout the year, we do that. This year, we have done that right from January, and October happens to be the month where things, are heightened. And so in this month of October, we've been going around to, public places, places of worship, the churches, the mosques, institutions, educating stakeholders about cyber threats and what measures they can put in place to secure their computer systems and to secure their data. Take, for example, ransomware. How would you, secure your database and computer system from, ransomware? For example, back up your database. And so when there's a ransomware attack, you still have, a database over there, And apart from that, we also, send out alerts and advisories. This goes onto social media. It is circulated on the traditional media. And these alerts and advisories are also, steps that people can take to secure their computer systems, secure their mobile phones, secure their sensitive information. All these alerts and advisories go out throughout the year. Now, when it comes to, apart from the awareness also, we also educate. The capacity building is not just about creating awareness of the cyber threats, but we also build the capacity of the stakeholders who are involved in, government, business, private business, including stakeholders involved in the electoral process. So this particular month, we held what is called a cyber drill. And the cyber drill is a tabletop exercise where you simulate an actual cybersecurity incident. And the rationale for this is that we invite, all stakeholders, and I believe IDEG, participated in that particular kind of cyber drill. We simulate an actual cybersecurity incident. Then there is an incident response plan, that these stakeholders will actually implement, in order to understand and know what should they do if a real cybersecurity incident should occur. It's, for example, like maybe a fire drill. And so we held the cyber drill this month, and the focus was actually on the electoral process. And somewhere within this year, too, we also did another cyber drill. It was even on the international, level where other countries, participated, because when it comes to cybersecurity, international cooperation is key. Like I did say earlier, cyberspace has a global reach, and so it's even possible that an incident may not be emanating from Ghana. It could be, from another country, and so there's the need to build that collaborative mechanisms with other international partners. Apart from the, capacity building initiatives, there's also, technical measures we put in place. Now, the technical measures we have put in place this time around I mean, ever since the Cybersecurity Authority was established, we have a national set, a National Computer Emergency Response Team established as a part of the Cybersecurity Authority, and their role is to coordinate response to cybersecurity, incidents if they should occur. Now, this National Computer Emergency Response Team does not only it's not the only, computer emergency response team that exists in Ghana. There are also sectoral sets. And so this National Computer Emergency Response Team, they work together with other sectoral sets, because when it comes to cybersecurity, collaboration, cooperation is key. For example, the National Communications Authority also has a computer emergency response team because they regulate the telecommunications space. And we all know that telecommunications underpins, the internet. And so the National Communications Authority also has a sectoral, computer emergency response team. There's a sectoral computer emergency response team in the government in the financial sector.
Jennifer, not to cut you. I know it's very exciting what we are hearing, but I wanted to bring you back to something because we are very interested in looking at what you have put in place when it comes to safeguarding the elections. You talked about issues to do with emergency response team and then also running like a
The cyber drill.
The drill.
The cyber drill.
So have you run a drill simulating what is likely to happen
Yes.
for the elections?
Yes,
And
so-
what were some of the vulnerabilities that you found, and how do you think that you can lay people's mind at rest that after the drill, we are protected for December 7th election? I think that's what people will be interested in knowing.
So basically, the cyber drill we simulated address threats that can, have the tendency of causing an unauthorized, access. All right. And so the stakeholders, they had to respond to such, threats. All right. And so apart from that, there was also it addressed a threat that can cause, a denial of service attack, such that when a legitimate user wants to have access to the computer system, it is not available
So in
when
this
they have
case,
to
was
use
it done with our electoral commission, political parties, with the National Communication Authority when it comes to relaying information? Because I think those are some of the things that people want some comfort with, that should anything happen in December 7th in relation to broadcasting results, that we are protected, that the national, the Cybersecurity Authority is on top of that issue, and that we are not going to suffer any such attacks that will render the results of the elections, in a way that
So
will
with
not
this
become-
particular cyber drill that was held, all the stakeholders involved in the electoral process were invited to the cyber drill. Apart from that, I mentioned, about advisories. Specific advisories have also been issued to, these stakeholders involved in the electoral process, not only just this month, but, throughout the year. We've done that. And if you look at the computer, there's a computer emergency response team that sits with NITA. They are responsible for addressing incidents when it comes to infrastructure of government agency, including the Electoral Commission. And so they are laid down strategies and incident response plan. Should, in case an incident should happen, there are strategies and plans that have been put in place. In the unlikely event that an incident should happen, there are strategies that have been put in place to address it. But currently, there are also technical, capabilities that have been rolled out to identify vulnerabilities and, address those vulnerabilities so that they are not exploited during the elections.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. I'm sure people will have some questions for you later. Mr. Ayabuafo, I'm coming to you next. I think that we have very few weeks to December 7th. And what I am interested in finding out is how the National Media Commission is collaborating with, let's say, the National Communication Authority in order to hold media houses accountable for hate speech and for spreading false information during this election period. I think that is very important. How are you holding media houses accountable for hate speech and spreading false information?
But I think that it is imperative that we situate the situation of the National Media Commission in the proper context so that people will have a very good understanding of the issues involved. Now, one of the myths about the National Media Commission, and which has turned into a lot of studies, is that it is a toothless bulldog without understanding the legal position of the commission. Because at the end of the day, if you're not very careful, you're going to look at it as a lion when it is not even a small dog, you know. Because and people take this from the perspective of Article 1672B, which says that the commission is to take all appropriate measures to ensure the highest journalistic standards. And when people look at that, they think that the commission can do anything without recourse to the due process of the law. And therefore, it has created a certain misconception, and that must be properly understood. The position of the law in terms of the commission is that there are three things that the commission is empowered to do as of now. That they will cause you to publish a rejoinder, they will cause you to retract the story, and then they will ask you to apologize. But these are the remedies available to the commission. And so when people look at it and say that, the thinking of people is that you should mete out punitive measures. And now without punitive measures, then it means that you are not capable. But let's assume that as we sit here today, somebody wants to take a human rights action and he goes to the Supreme Court. It will be rejected. It will be thrown away because the Supreme Court is not seized to dealing with matters of human rights. You have to go to the High Court. And if you went to the Supreme Court and they rejected you, it doesn't make the Supreme Court useless. It is only because you did not follow process. And that is the understanding that we as Ghanaians must have in dealing with the matter. Because particularly there's Article 173 that specifically says that the commission cannot direct the media houses or journalists on what they ought to do on a daily basis. Yeah, but to come back to your question, we are collaborating with the NCA, even though sometimes we ourselves are not very comfortable in that kind of collaboration, because, for instance, there's a joint committee of the Media Commission and the NCA. Now, at our first meeting, we came out with certain decisions. Now, the problem was how to implement them. And when the NCA insisted that they had to take it to the minister for ministerial approval before the joint committee could do anything, we felt that we don't owe anything to any minister whatsoever. And it became a clog because once they never received the approval of the minister, they were not willing to do what we intended to be done. But beyond that, we presently running, we have a media monitoring center that been provided by the NCA that we are managing. And they have been monitoring television stations that put out egregious content, charlatanic, ads and those kind of things. And indeed, but for this function today, we are going to hold a meeting with 43 television and radio stations that we have invited for discussion. Because we think that the solution is not just to ban them or to punish them, but sometimes to engage them, to have a better understanding, because they are providing a service. except that sometimes the service that they provide them, they themselves are not sure as to what they are providing. And it becomes necessary that we have discussions with them, that we are able to influence them in doing what is right, because they purport to serve the interests of the people of this country. And indeed, some of those stations may only be the only outlet of information to some people. And so closing them down would mean that we are denying some Ghanaians access to information that they require to understand. And so we have shifted it to tomorrow. And tomorrow we're going to have a meeting with these 43 institutions. And then also recently, I thought, we are in court. Media General has taken us to court. It's one of the issues that we're dealing with, because as the body that sets the standards for measuring what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, we found some of the programs on UNIA to be very, very offensive and very, very unprofessional. We try to speak to them because we don't want to go out, condemn them before. So we wrote to them, advising that we thought that some of the things were not palatable, and if they could do something about it, they would serve the interest of the public better. They wrote back to us that they are exercising their freedom. And we thought that this is not the way to exercise freedom. So we wrote back to them saying that, look, we set the rules. We are measuring the rules that we have set. And therefore, they cannot measure what we are the ones. Because we set the standard, and we say that you are deviating from the standard that you set. And you are an outsider, and you are challenging us that you are doing what you're supposed to do. And so as part of the collaboration between us and the NCA, we wrote to the NCA that we don't have the power to close an TV or radio station. Yeah, but these are dangerous moves that we do not think were in the best interest of the people of this country. And since they have the power and the law, then we were referring the matter to them to go through their own processes of the due process. And if they found foundation in what we were saying, then they could take the necessary action. If they didn't see anything in what we were saying, then they could allow the status quo to prevail. Immediately, we sent this thing to them. They rushed to court and sued both us and the NCA. Yeah. Now, unfortunately, the NCA didn't want to be part of this. And definitely, the lawyers will tell you that since they are the ones to take the necessary action, if the decision is they will implement it, there's no way that the court will say that they are not part of the thing. So they had to go through that process of dissociating themselves from the suit. It went to the High Court. The High Court ruled against them. They went to Court of Appeal, ruled against them. They are the Supreme Court. They want Supreme Court to do. And it has delayed the process. And because of that, we cannot, deal with, for instance, whatever is going on there. And so these are some of the things. But basically, we know the limitations, our constraints. And one of the things that we have done is to set up what we call media advisory committees at the regional levels. Now, within each of the regions, we identify individuals who are recognized and appreciated by that society, and who may also understand the language and the nuancing of those languages within the regional setup. And we constitute this committee, and that will become the first line of any intervention in the process. And so if anybody reports of any adverse media thing, then the regional advisory committee would then take up this matter. Since they live with the media people, they live with the media organizations, and they live within that society, and the society knows their worth, we say that they can have the first interaction with the people. And then whatever comes, they will report to us at the level, and then we will look at whatever is happening at the local level and see what other interventions that we can make. And that is one of the most, it makes our presence a little more diffuse than because as we say, as we are talking, apart from the 18 members of the commission who are part-time, and the law says that none of them should pretend that they are in full-time employment. It is stated in the law that for the avoidance of doubt, members of the commission should not present themselves as if they are in full-time employment. Now, the secretariat is the technical, that will provide us with as we speak today, they have only about 9 people. Out of these 9 people, some of them are messengers, some are security people, some are watchmen, others are, and so at the technical level, there are only 3 people. The executive secretary, the deputy, even the deputy executive secretary is a problem because he was supposed to have gone on retirement. And because we do not have we have not been granted permission to recruit. The Public Service Commission has granted us the right to recruit 430 people. But you know, you cannot just recruit. You need the financial clearance before you recruit. And so even though we are supposed to employ 430 people, we cannot recruit even one of them. And so the only thing that we have done is to keep the Deputy Executive Secretary in position, you know, as a way of support. Otherwise, it will be George and there's a lady in the office called Paula. They will have been the only people that are handling. So this is the best that we are doing under the circumstances. And one of the things that with the elections, and we did it the last election, is that we have an expedited way of complaint settlement. Under the law, we are supposed to write to the people within 7 days. They will write back to us, then we send it to the complainant, find out whether the complainant is satisfied with the response. If the complainant is not satisfied, then we call a formal meeting. Now, under the expedited, what we do is that sometimes we even move to where the radio station is so that we can engage them, you know, quite quickly and more meaningfully in resolving this. And so we have resolved that, because when the law says within, it means that from the first day to the last day. And so for as long as we are operating within, and not just the day that we receive the complaint, we think that we are not breaching any of the laws. And those are the things that we have set up ourselves to do to ensure that we bring sanity into the airwaves with this period. But we know the limitations under which that we are operating, and that's why we need the support of everybody, and particularly the media institutions themselves, because it is better that they come to us than to go to court. I mean, between us, the legal knowledge that we have is more than any judge sitting anywhere. And if they are willing to submit to a single judge, then it is more meaningful that they submit to the commission. If anything at all, we will not be adversarial. We're going to look at reconciling, and our approach is accommodating, because sometimes we realize that it is not that they have evil intention. It is only because there was one word that they used, that if they had used the opposite of that word or the synonym of that word, I mean, all the danger will have been abated. So these are the things that we are doing.
Thank you very much. The last statement you made about the fact that it's not that they have evil intention. Sometimes I think that some of our people actually do have evil intentions, and some of the things that they say. Because there's been occasion where I know the National Media Commission have actually called certain stations and certain journalists to retract and apologize for some statements they've made. And they've bluntly refused to do that. And I think that is one of the reasons why people, and it's very educative that you are mentioning the things that you are allowed to do by law. Because it becomes very difficult for you to do anything else if all you have to do is to try to get them to publish a retraction or apologize. I mean, if they refuse to do that, and especially the circumstances we're talking about, the National Communication Authority wanting to separate themselves, I don't know whether to cry for you or to do some appeal for funds for them.
Yeah, but Madam, you know, as a practicing journalist myself, sometimes we should be charitable with ourselves. And that charity is that, well, because when I say that sometimes it is not deliberate, I think that is a fact. It doesn't mean that it forecloses any other possibility. I mean, there are sometimes that people are very, very mischievous. And when we see that, we identify it and we tell them. But there are also instances where we have seen that it is just an understanding of the language that is creating the problem for them. So it's not that I am trying to paper over evil, but I want to state that these are these possibilities, and we cannot run away from the fact that sometimes it's a genuine error. Just as a friend from cybersecurity distinguished between misinformation and malinformation, you know, because misinformation could be unintentional. It may be harmless sometimes, except that sometimes some misinformation can be mischievous. But when you are dealing with malinformation, it can never be generous.
Thank you very much. Before we continue, please, a black Land Cruiser, GE8868Z. Someone is removing your car tie. And then Land Cruiser, GT717416. Somebody wants to take away your battery. So please quickly go and attend to your vehicles. Thank you very much. I mean, this is a very interesting conversation we are having here, and I'm sure you are all enjoying it. But my question to George, and I'm coming to you, is that, I mean, I really like what Mr. Ayabwafu was saying, because we have been talking about collaboration, right, between the National Media Commission and then the National Communications Authority. And if we come to what is going to happen in election 2024, what do you think are some of the measures that can be taken to balance the freedom of media with the need to regulate contents that could incite violence or promote hate speech, so that we can actually combat the spread of misinformation and indecent broadcasting that can actually cause problems for us in our elections?
Okay. Thank you very much. Excuse me. But I saw that the executive director had returned to their room. I came here because they couldn't find you. So once you are here, you should exchange seats. But I think that we need to revisit the very important comment that Mr. Ayabwafu made. But also when you listen to people like Mr. Ayabwafu, Nana Jana Penting, Cabral, and a certain generation of journalists, those who really fought, I was very lucky to follow them then, for the right to free expression. They are always philosophically tuned to defending and protecting the freedom of speech. So that his natural instinct is to say, journalists don't always start with bad intentions. So, and I'm always happy that we still have people like them because their orientation is free expression. If we lose them, we lose out. However, I think the second generation of free expression activists like myself move more towards the center. So when you ask the question about what can we do, I always say everything is on the table. Mr. Ayabwafu just explained to you that when we issued the notice of revocation against Onia FM and TV, they went to court. And people think that it is frustrating. I'm happy. You know why? It's very cynical, but that's the truth. They're a business. They're looking for money. They're using their private money to litigate in court. We are using public money to litigate. If they have to go to court every now and then, they will save up. Do you understand? So that in itself is an important lever. We will continue to take the actions that we have to take within the law. So we always say that everything is on the table. The truth, though, is that we also need to be very careful, as Mr. Ayabwafu always insists. In all honesty, the media situation is not as bad as sometimes we fear. All of us have listened to radio today or watched television. We may have read the newspapers. Please answer this question to yourself. Of the many minutes, seconds, hours of TV that you've watched over the time, how many of them are so bad as can collapse this society if they were not stopped? Do you understand? So the situation is not as bad as sometimes we fear it to be. That is number one. Number two is that for media experts, we know that media content doesn't influence people the way an injection gets into your bloodstream and works on your body. Do you understand? There's a certain moderating influence that our own personalities, our intellect, our learning, our faith, our beliefs bring to our consumption of media. Okay. Third is that the fault lines that exist in certain societies that make them easy to be triggered to violence are different from what we have. So when we look at the totality of that, we should be ready to moderate our fears about the media situation. But that does not mean that the most egregious issues shouldn't be addressed. If I present this to you, in your mind you'll be wondering, so what at all did Onion do that made you come to the conclusion that their licenses should be revoked? Quickly, let me tell you what happened. First, they ran a story that says that they want the chairman of the Council of State killed. We cautioned them. Next, they ran a story in the heat of the coup d'etats around Sahel. They say, the Ghana Armed Forces, are they stupid? Can't they see what real soldiers are doing? What are they sitting down doing without removing this government? And the young people of Ghana should rise up against the state. We caution them. The next thing, they say the Chief of Defense Staff, at the time it was Amama, CDS Amama. He and his commanders are beasts. I mean B-E-A-S-T-S, beasts. Then they run another story that says, the minister, the Western Regional Minister, is very stupid. He's as stupid as a northern politician. This is what is going on here. So when you hear us say they've tripped the lines, all these things that we've told you, any of them in another society could have triggered something very bad. But because this society is slightly different, we don't take it for granted. But we know that the fault lines that exist in certain societies are not here. So we need to moderate ourselves. The next reason why some of them we can choose to ignore them, the truth is that all of you, I told you this story, and everybody say, hey, but most of you live in Accra. What it means is that that radio station is not as influential as people think. You understand? So many serious people don't listen to them. So when you have countervailing channels, like the credible ones that sustain the peace, we call them legitimators in our work. When you have so many legitimators within the industry, you don't allow yourself to get into frenzy over these fringes of the media. That is why we will still keep tempering our attitudes towards the issue. But any radio station that crosses the line like Onia has done, we are ready to initiate the processes. And even if their response is to go to court, as I have explained to you, it may look like it gives them a reprieve. We are ready to go over the long haul with them. And when it begins to bite their bottom line, they would begin to understand that maybe shaping up is a far better decision than spending the same money that they are looking for by misbehaving. They may spend in court. Senior counsel, the bar must prosper. It's not a bad idea that people go to court. You understand? So in short, that is what we are doing. But let me also quickly announce to you, in this upcoming election, we are launching a special app that we think is a game changer in addressing some of these issues that are of concern to people, including disinformation and misinformation. So as you sit, you can actually go on, depending on what phone you are using, either the App Store or the Play Store, and the download Media Watch. And this is how it works. This is GPS stamped. It is time-stamped. So any incident that you observe anywhere in relation to the election or any content that you see on television or hear on radio, you can easily record. It has facilities for video and audio recording. And the moment you record and you submit, it automatically comes to our strong room. If it is something that requires official response, because of the GPS stamping, it goes to the nearest official line that is closest to the incident. So we are working with the police. If it is something that the police need to quickly respond to, because of the GPS tracking, it can lead them straight to where it is. And it helps us also to know what is happening in the media across, but it relies heavily on our collective participation. So each one of you can easily download the app. This morning, Dr. Kwete was expressing concern with us about video that is on social media about a claim that some military equipment were being conveyed from Tema Harbor, and you couldn't tell whether it is Ghana or not. If, for example, any one of you knowing the app exists, film if it was true and filmed it, we could tell exactly where this incident is happening. So in the elections, if somebody is making a claim about an incident happening at a polling station, and somebody at the polling station has submitted the material, it is so easily verifiable because of the time stamping and the GPS, you can't manipulate the content. At the same time, it offers us facility to protect the journalist. Also because if something happens, because of the easy access to the police and all, we're discussing with the Ghana Health Service also to see if using the same facility we can track to the nearest clinics and health centers for the journalists. So these are some of the things that we are doing.
Thank you very much. I think this is a very laudable thing, and it's a shared responsibility. Can you hear me? Yes. Fantastic. So I think it's a shared responsibility. So what I would advise is in this elections to ensure that the right kind of information is fed to people. So I think that we can put it on the website so that people can download the app and use it. And between all of us, I'm sure we'll be able to help ensure the right information gets to the right people. Before...
Sorry, just a second. We are also ready to work with different teams. If, for example, in your church, you decide that in the small community where you work, you want to monitor incidents, you can set up a special channel for you where any material that is submitted in relation to that small vicinity comes directly to you, and then you can intervene. So we are ready to work with different groups, youth groups, church groups, community groups, and set up systems to enable them also help all of us do this.
Thank you very much. So we are going to open the floor for questions, but before we do that, I would like to acknowledge our partners who has made this forum possible. And so I would want to acknowledge the European Union. Do we have representatives of the European Union here? Thank you very much for helping us do this today. And then the Norwegian Embassy. The Norwegian Embassy. Thank you very much for supporting us. The National Media Commission and the Cyber Security Authority. Thank you very much. Without your support, we wouldn't have been able to do this today. So now I will open the floor for a few questions. I know that you have a lot of questions, but we will take a few because of time constraints. So the floor is open. Can we get a mic?
Please, whilst you're looking for the mic, let me just quickly say something about the EU. Even though the EU is not supporting this app that we deployed, it is our work with them previously on monitoring that has evolved into this. So we would want to publicly thank you very much for the previous support that leads us this way. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. My name is Kwesi Jonah, and I work with IDEG. My question goes to my good friend, Mr. George Sapon. Now, in his presentation, he made very clear that there are two different systems of regulating communications in the country, the converged and the non-converged. My understanding is that Ghana at the moment practices the non-converged, in that the technical aspects of communication regulated by the NCA and then the content by the NMC. My question, at this particular point in time, what prevents us from changing from the non-converged to the converged? Because don't forget, the European Union Election Observer Mission's recommendation is precisely based on that one.
We will take two other questions and then we'll come. Yes.
So thank you very much. My name is Kenneth Ashigbe. You see, the challenge again, even with the technical one that we even have major issues with them, in as much as the broadcasting law is archaic. Even the one that we have that the NCA is dealing with also has its issues. But foundationally, we think that is what the chairman of the NMC said. You have an NCA law that says that that gets the appointment of the Director General and the board by the president. You have the situation where the amended NCA law says that the minister may give directives and the board shall. So it completely renders the autonomy away. And we've seen, the example is what Yao mentioned, where an action that has to be taken. So definitely we need to be moving towards the converged. And we need, as a matter of course, to take away the power from the NCA. It's inimical to everything we do. Currently, as we speak, digital migration. What's happened to digital migration? It's giving the power currently for broadcast is in the hands of the NCA, and that has to change. So it's one of the things that we need to do. But as all of us cry about the media and some of the challenges that we face, we should bear in mind that in the 2020 elections, there was a journalist called Pius. He was shot covering an election. And as at now, after 7 surgeries, he has to pay 240,000 cedis for another surgery. So as we talk about all the issues that those on the fringes do, the question I would also want to ask the NMC is that, what are we doing to protect journalists beyond the app? When we go into these elections that is so divisive, and even those who have been hurt, what are we doing? Because we never hear the NMC take practical steps to be able to support journalists who face this thing. We have what? A journalist who was beating at the police headquarters. His skull is cracked currently as we speak. And there's several examples. There's an Erastus case currently that is still pending. What are we doing to ensure that our journalists are bold enough to be able to give us the coverage that we require? So that's my question.
Thank you very much. The last question. Any other?
Thank you very much. My name is Jacob Tete Ahuno from Ghana Integrity Initiative. And just a quick one on the app. So, the discussion also focused on the television or radio, news and all information coming through that side. What would the app do in terms of me watching a television, see someone say something that could cause, it's a misinformation or disinformation? Do I take a picture? How does it give you location? Because then the location is my house. Okay.
Okay, so question 1 and question 3 to George, and then I think. Okay.
So let me just quickly deal with that. When you submit material on radio or television, on that one, our interest is not in where it's happening, because you know where the TV station is. So if this is on Joy FM, and I hope that it won't be Joy FM or City, those legitimators, we know them. About 5 or 6, 7 stations are going to be the key legitimators for this election. If people listen to them, they are likely to debunk a lot of the things that will go wrong. But because we know where every TV station is and every radio station is, all we need is real-time submission that this is going on. So as soon as we submit, we're able to intervene immediately. So, okay.
So, for example,
because it's important to us.
So if you're listening to the radio and you capture a section
Yes.
where it doesn't mention the radio's name, how do you get it?
So, very good question.
Yeah.
On the submission form, you also have opportunity for narrative. So you can add any question, you can add any description, you can also identify exactly what your problem is. Sometimes it may come in a language that we really immediately, we may submit to the Regional Media Advisory Committee Chairman talked about, but a little description would help. But we give people opportunity to do the submission the way it is. So engage people like you, you will see that there is more opportunity to say more. So that's that. Now the 2 questions. Dr. Jonah, my senior hall tutor in whom I'm well pleased. Let me say something just quickly about this man that I learned. We're in Legon Hall. Some students come from the Western region with trunks. This is the first time they are traveling outside their region. They've come to Legon. They are non-resident students. There's no room. So Jonah says, I'm going to give rooms to these people who are coming from these areas before I look at any one of you coming from Accra. And there's an uproar. He stands his ground. One of the people who came dusty is today in Parliament. And I've always cited this. This is progressive reasoning. God bless you. I was a very active student leader. Yes. Very, very active. And I always remember people like him as icons for the society. Thank you, sir. Now the question that you ask, what stops us from becoming a converged system? And it is related to Ken's question about the NCA powers and all, and the other issues that he has with them. Remember that he is the chief executive of the Telecoms Chamber. That is the industry forum. So his job is to fight NCA. So when he comments on them, remember the bias. But that is just about the way. So please quickly, why can't we undertake a converged system? 70% of the world run a non-converged system. And this is why. It's very simple. Think of the frequency that the NCA holds as an imaginary road, okay, in the air. And think of the radio stations or the content as vehicles and their content. If you watch closely, the Ghana Police Service or the MTTD, you don't need to combine the MTTD and the Ghana Highways Authority in order for the police to check bad driving on the road. Do you understand? Why? Pardon me. Okay, let me say it again. The highways build the road, and the police are checking how you use the road. Do you understand? The police is able to check how you drive only because there is a law.
Yeah, but they don't have contact highways.
So that's the point we are coming to. Yeah. So all that you need is a law that says that you can't do this and that and that and that if you're on radio. Mm-hmm. And that is the content instrument we are talking about. Mm-hmm. So you don't need any complications. The moment you set that law straight, nobody can do anything that the law says they can't do. Part of the law that we did that the Supreme Court, in our view, misunderstood was that I showed you that there were other justifications. We won't get into them. But what the law meant was that, as happens everywhere in the world, if you obtained a license from NCA, that entitles you only to the use of the frequency. you needed a license from NMC in order to operate as a radio station. So if we had done that, if any radio station offended the rules, you could withdraw their content license, which meant that even if they kept their frequency license, they will be paying money every day, but they will not be able to operate. Do you see the point? And it is the same thing about the road analogy. So shift small. Customs permits you to bring the vehicle in. You've gone to pay everything. You need DVLA to now certify the vehicle and say you can drive the vehicle on the road. You don't need to combine customs and DVLA in order to get this thing to run. If you are going to merge these two institutions, you are going to be confronted with two things, one technical, one legal. NMC is set up by the Constitution. So any changes that you need to make, you will have to make to the Constitution. That is too much complicated. That's about the law side. On the technical side, NCA is doing so many things that has nothing to do with what NMC does. When you take your car remote control and you open your vehicle, you are using a frequency. That is managed by NCA. What has that got to do with NMC? Do you understand? So the easiest way to address this, if you really understand the field, is just to say, leave NCA where they sit. Just deal with NMC. I have said this publicly. Sometimes there's a certain feeling that in order to build NMC, you need to weaken NCA. We don't need to weaken NCA to build NMC. You understand? They are not here. They don't pay me. I don't owe them anything. But because of my expertise and my work in the international system, I can say before you, brothers and sisters, that NCA is one of the best run technical regulatory institutions in the world. I won't touch it for the sake of Ghana, even though the proposals they make appear to favor NMC. If I were a government, I won't do it, even if it looks like it will benefit NMC, because there are easier, better, more efficient ways to address the NMC question without necessarily affecting NCA. So, sir, when they talk about that arrangement, they say that out of frustration. And the EU report is based on the recommendations that they are talking to people around. So it is not something based on their own expertise. It is based on what the Ghanaians that they talked to told them. And I have explained to you that this idea is driven more by influential people who genuinely believe in Ghana and want a solution. But they are not necessarily experts on the technicalities that I have explained to you. So if somebody makes a recommendation to them, I have an obligation to tell you the truth. Even though it appears in the recommendation, I will say, left to me, that won't be the path. The last part of Kenny Ashigbe's comment, and when I said he's a bad boy, he disagreed with me. When he spoke, you saw the passion. It's part of his character. He's a bad boy. But Ken, that is, you are, and I pray to God for your life and your commitment to the question about safety of journalists. But in public service, technical rules must be followed. Something happens, you report to the National Media Commission. They don't report. And they don't report only because they know we'll ask questions. I'll quickly tell you a story. We have had a situation where a journalist was beaten, there was blood all over him. And there was uproar in town. When we got into it, he had faked it, the blood was taking blood. Opaya knows the story, Nana knows the story. Sometimes you keep quiet. There is a story that came a couple of years ago that shocked the entire society. We went to the place 5 times. We did all our investigations, and we said, submit a report to us. On each visit, their story was changing. We said, fix the story in writing. They never did. Until, and I publicly reminded them at a forum, at a errata. 6 months after the incident, one of the people involved gets arrested. And then they quickly rush and now file their case with us. When they bring the case, there are about 5 issues that we ask them. Number one, when we first went there, they had told us the name of a specific person who led the attack. In their official report, the name was not there. When this person supposedly went there, there were 7 people at the station. In their report, they had confirmed that those 7 people were there. This person that is alleged led the attack is from the community. So how could all of you know the person who led the attack in your verbal responses to us? And then in the official report, unknow the person. And then they put it in the report that 6 months after the attack, the attackers are yet to be identified. Okay? If you go through it, Nyama. But as far as Ghanaians are concerned, something has happened to them, which is possibly true. The point I'm making is that for as long as we work together, when incidents happen and people believe what has happened and they are being honest about it, let them submit the report. We are with them. You understand? For those who choose not to report, we are not likely to go rumor hunting for fact, because we always know why people refuse to report. So what has happened is that when something happens and we encourage them to report, if they don't, based on our knowledge, we leave them. It is not our job to be exposing the media, because if you go and tell the truth about some of these incidents, you empower the people who attack the media because you're undermining the credibility of the media. We don't see that as our job. But we still strongly think that we need to work together on this. Last part is about, should I say it? I won't say that one.
Don't say
Thank
it.
you.
Don't say it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but Madam, see, the other side of it is this, that the reality is that, you see, when you're a member of the National Media Commission, you cease to be an activist. Because the whole national decision is entrusted to us. And we are dealing with so many different publics at a time. Now, if I were working with the GJA, I would condemn any attack on any journalist. Now, if I'm working with the National Media Committee, I have to exercise a lot of caution. Because I need to listen to almost everybody before I come to a conclusion. Otherwise, when you jump to conclude and say that this is this, that, and then the matter comes before you, how are you going to objectively analyze the thing and come out with a ruling? And so the thing is that people should distinguish between NGOs and a public body that has responsibility for everybody, including those who are supposed to have attacked the people. And if we believe in the law of Ghana that, you cannot pronounce somebody guilty without listening to that person, then it is unfair to expect that the National Media Commission will condemn people even before they look into that. There have been instances that I have personally spoken to people in leadership with the organizations just to bring the matter to us. They will be issuing statements to different bodies altogether. And they know that those different bodies cannot deal with the matter. And they will never ever attempt to bring it to the National Media Commission. And then when you intervene, in one particular case, when we intervene, we're able to resolve the matter. And then they came back to say that, oh, they are happy about what we have done. And yet, they never ever thought about reporting the matter to the National Media Commission. So when you face some of these things, like the incident involving Izumazi, Honorable Izumazi was the central regional minister. Some journalists were supposed to have gone to a house and beat him, right? And we learned that one of them was drunk like snake. Now, Grafton requested for a formal report. He refused to submit any report. Now, in a situation like this, a credible body should not jump into making commentary about that. It is only when you have the fact, you are seized with the full facts of the matter, that you can make a proper determination. And in the first place, some of those things, the National Media Commission cannot itself resolve those matters, apart from speaking and encouraging public support for the matter. Because somebody assaults somebody, it's a criminal matter. And that matter, the only thing that the commission can do is to hype that so that the public will join in for the right people to do what they have to do. Otherwise, I mean, the National Media Commission is a matter of free expression agency. It doesn't deal with criminal matters, you know. But what it can do is to leverage its authority to support the prosecution of those individuals who are culpable in undertaking those kind of erroneous things. Yeah, but if you expect that the commission will get the justice for those people, in the first place, if the matter goes to court, we may not have even the locus. And the people themselves have to come and give evidence. And when they are reluctant to give evidence, then how do you support them in fighting their case? We have always been sympathetic to, because we are also practitioners. If any of those things are happening to us, we will not be happy. But how do we all collectively, you know? And my MD is sitting there. He suffered one of the most injustices in a matter of making sure that we deal with the matter. One of our boys had been attacked at a press conference by someone else. Now, Graphic was determined to fight this case to the last one. Now, the MD went with a lawyer. They went to see him. They moved from the office to the court. He's sitting in the middle of the MD and the lawyer. And it was only when the case was called that they heard that that case was settled before they came there. now, in a situation like that, how do you help this individual? You see, and this is not an anecdote. It is a reality. So sometimes we are limited in what we can do when we don't get the support and cooperation from the individuals who are supposed to have suffered under these hands.
Let me just quickly say this very quickly. I know you. You see, in our work, there is a phenomenon we call celebrity victimhood. There are situations where people actually enjoy the attention that they get when they are perceived as victims. And so they are not interested in a solution per se. I'll give you a quick case. Some time ago, there's a radio station in Kumasi called Oyerepa. They go into trouble with the Manchia police. Msai Boafo lives in Kumasi now. He intervened, got the issues settled. I'm talking to one of the people involved and said, why didn't you report? Lawyer, for the, say, ya krananko will be an email. I said, we are ma. For our friends who don't speak Chi, I'm talking to this person involved and says, well, lawyer, but for this crisis, nobody knew of our radio station. So don't be in a rush to resolve the problem. Let it play out a bit. You understand? So sometimes we know why people don't report. We insist that in order to be able to establish the facts. So this case that Chairman is talking about, if you had asked the boy to submit his own report on the incident, it would have alerted you very early what was going to happen in court.
Okay. Thank you very much. You can continue that conversation outside. But what I'm quick to say, and this year we offer some training to journalists on election reporting. One of the key things that I tell the journalists that we train is that when it comes to election reporting, you have a responsibility of protecting yourself first. And we've given them the tools. When you get to your site, you should identify yourself to whoever the officer in charge there is, the police officer, or if it's the fire service, or it's a military man. Let them know that you are there to report on the elections. And then when something happens, please find somewhere to hide. Don't be in a hurry to break the story, because you might end up breaking yourself. The National Media Commission doesn't have money to pay your medical bills. They are not set up. So please don't be expecting that from them. So your responsibility to hide, right? And then before you go ahead, because if you get injured, sometimes they like to put themselves in trouble. I'm telling you, I know, I've dealt with journalists, I teach them, and I know what they can do. Okay, so we'll take the final 3 questions, and then we will end today. Very quickly. Please. Yes.
Hello. My name is Mercedes Scheibel, and I'm here with the West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism and Counterterrorism Group. And my question is more technical surrounding the application device that you've introduced. My question is, what are the current monitoring capabilities or capacities in place to really ensure to have the capacity for real-time intervention when large masses of people will try to submit to the app, as this is probably something that social media sites have been struggling with and are currently also struggling with, especially with a lot of deep fakes circulating. And my second question is, what pathways are currently in place for AI development companies to work with regional as well as national authorities to combat misinformation surrounding elections? Specifically in a collaborative manner that doesn't kind of block AI and diminish that, but more enhances that technology. Thank you. Yes. With the app?
Yes.
Okay, so what are the current monitoring capabilities or measurements in place to ensure real-time intervention when large masses of people will submit simultaneously and different types of media as well as deepfakes? Thank you.
Any other? Will be the last one.
Hello? Yes. Thank you very much. My name is Solomon. I work with Foundation for Security and Development in Africa, FOSDA. I'm interested in the cyber drill, the point that was highlighted. I think your colleague made a point that anything during elections can happen, and he made us understand that, for instance, the hackers can use AI to make the EC declare a result and so on and so forth. And so I want to find out, when something like that happens, how is the cybersecurity authority going to deal with it? How long will it take you? Because you said you have done some simulations and so on and so forth. How long will it take you to identify and deal with this threat? Thank you.
All right. The last question goes to the gentleman.
Okay, so my name is David. You see, I work with Youth Rise International, URI, based in the Central region. Usually, we know that young people are the key persons that are mobilized by some people to cause trouble, including even reporting wrong. And civil society organizations like Youth Rise International, we engage with the youth a lot and are able to bring some of these issues up for redress. My question is, how do we ensure our own safety? Because we know the civil space is shrinking, and civil society organizations like us and others who are bringing some of these issues up comes under various attacks, especially when the issues doesn't seem to sit well with a particular political color. So is there anything for CSO activists, NGO personnel who are actively at a grassroots level, work with young people to monitor the process, to bring issues to bear when things are not going wrong, to ensure that we can still support the whole ecosystem to have a peaceful election? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you for your question. And so when it comes to, a situation whereby we have an artificial intelligence mechanism that has been used to create a false information, of course, it will be hosted on a platform. The Cybersecurity Authority, like I initially said, we collaborate with, various stakeholders, including certain international platforms, international partners who own some of these platforms. So when some of these things happen, what we do is to, collaborate with them to bring down such, fake, news. Apart from that, I did mention about the advisories and alerts. We send the advisories to the general public to be cautious about, such, false information. So those are some of the strategies we put in place, and we encourage reporting. We have, my colleague showed, our reporting channels, 292. If you see, something that is online that is fake, you can call 292 and report it accordingly.
Thank you. So you will take the question from, yes, about the app.
Essentially, if my understanding is right, you are talking about the capacity of the system to hold how much content. Is that correct? So let me put it not in technical terms. The system is designed Hello. You know, I'm not interested in getting more microphones. I'm interested in getting more food. So I was saying that I don't want to put it in technical terms, but just for everybody to follow. Ghana is said to be about 32 million people. So this system is designed with the anticipation that half the population of Ghana are going to submit materials, each one submitting about 100 materials of a minimum of 10 megabytes. So that should give you a sense of the capacity that we are talking about. But we do not anticipate that the load will be that high, but we are prepared for that. Yes. So that's the part about the GPS system. The materials are distributed according to the geographical sources. So those that are, and then for those that we are going to get the people making the submission give us a lot more description. So if it is something that is related to violence, it straight away goes to the nearest security people around the location. If it is about health, it automatically, so it is that disaggregated, but that will depend on how well the people who are doing the submissions offer information. All other materials that are coming without descriptors have a system of selection. So that's how generally we are working.
On the question about safety and security, I think that one of the things that we must appreciate is that we recognize that there's risk involved in everything that human beings do. Now, so one of the things that the established media organizations do is that they give their people training, and then they always tell them that don't go there and become the story. Go there and bring us the story. Because when you become the story, it is only once. Yeah, but if you give the story, you can be there, and people have to exercise a lot of caution. I mean, there are some of us who sometimes can be very, very foolhardy. You see that policeman or soldier, you see his face. He's very, very annoyed at you. You say, stop. Say, I'm a journalist, I will not stop. Now, you know, that is invitation to violence. I mean, people have to be a little more cautious. Now, we are in this room. There are doors to this room. If anybody should enter here through any window, I do not think that we are going to tolerate that individual, no matter how benign that individual might be. And so, my admonition to our people is that investigative journalism is a very, very serious enterprise. If you cannot evaporate then be careful about what you do. Because the moment that you use unorthodoxy and you are found out, you answer to the rules. And so when you want to do that, be very, very ingenious in your approach to things. And I liken it to this, that, a psychologist wants to study armed robbers and see how they operate. He joins an armed robbery gang. They go on a mission. Now they rob somebody and they give you a gun to fire at that individual. And you do, and you are arrested. Are you going to say that you are learning about armed robbery? because if you get to know their tricks, it will be to the benefit of society in general. We're going to educate us about how to protect ourselves. So why we will not discourage journalists from involving themselves in risky enterprises, we encourage them to be a little more innovative that in their approach than to be blunt, straightforward, and blunt. Because if you are not resourceful enough, there could be the possibility of endangering your life. Meanwhile, you are worth more than risking death. And at any point in time, people have to make a decision as to whether you want to put your neck there, because we know generally who have gone to jail because they have refused to disclose their sources of information. And that is a risk. And so if you decide that you are not going to do that, then please take the precautionary measure. We will not countenance anybody beating any journalist. I mean, that is unacceptable under any circumstance. Yeah, but when they say that stop, like the 28th February shooting this time, and they say stop, at least even if you want to go, stop before you move. Because if they say stop and you move, they will shoot. But when they say stop and you stop, you disarm them for a moment. And before they become aware, you are moving ahead. And so, I mean, those of us who are in positions of influence and who come into contact with people in the media, it is important that we engage them and educate them sufficiently on the way that we ought to go so that we do not lose anybody. And I do not think that we're going to lose people because of this election. You know, the incident about the police headquarters beating of that guy who had gotten problem. You know, we tried. When eventually they agreed for the commission to do it, I think that the commission was able to do that and asked that he should be compensated. Now the problem was the police, because they need money and they had to write to the Ministry of Finance. That was the thing. You know, so we will not deliberately gloss over anything. We will try to protect the interests of every media person. But as Wole Soyinka has said in the Swamp Dwellers, and he says that we will not go into the marsh. We cannot stop everybody from going into the marsh. But we will never allow those who go into the marsh to come and smear us with the death that they carry from the marsh. And I think that is the thing that I want to leave us and say, yes, we will fight. But let us not be foolish in the approach.
Thank you very much. I think this has been a very interesting discussion. Before we close, I want to tell you about our last speaker, Mr. It's outside. Get a copy, read it, and you would get a lot of information. I've been in the media space for so many years. In fact, since I was young, and I'm old now. So now I'm working how old he is, because I'm very old now. So, please, get a copy and read it. I'm actually going to grab one myself and read. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all very much. And thank you to our panelists for this riveting conversation that we've had today. And thank you all so much for also listening. And I will now invite to give us the closing
very important. I think it's important for us to get some guidelines. I prepare regulations or even a law when it comes to disinformation, malinformation, because a lot is up in the air. If I teach sexual harassment, I tell you that it's okay to compliment a woman on her dress. You look nice, your dress is beautiful. But if you say you look hot and your dress makes your breast stand out, this is the problem there. So in the same way, I think it's important for the public to know what disinformation is, what malinformation is, what misinformation is, and be guided by it to a point where we even have some kind of regulations around this coming from the people who work in this area. And that's where I come to Mr. Sappon. I don't see why we have stayed so long on that convergence, non-convergence issue. When we can converge in a local Presbyterian center with all the experts, deal with the matter, and come out with something that works for Ghana. Look at the number of years we have spent talking about broadcasting law up to the place where we are now. There's no excuse. Really, there's no excuse. So please, I'm not asking you to go to St. I'm not asking you to go to Kempinski. Presbyterian Women's Center is there. Get all the experts in. Thank you. Get all the experts in. You said some people don't understand it, even though they talk about it. NCA, NMC, all the experts you want in. Sit there, come out with something in 3 days. And get people who are experts at doing private members' bill. Because your LI is an inferior law, quote unquote. It can be challenged and thrown out, CIs, LIs. But if you get a private members' bill person in there, they would help you to come up with something. And we won't be coming back next 2 years to talk about the fact that we have issues with non-convergence and disconvergence and malconvergence. I don't see why we are wasting time. Lastly, I think it's important that the issue around amending our constitution, it's coming up again very strongly. And it's coming up very strongly for me, especially within the context of the conversation around Parliament and the Supreme Court issue. As a lawyer, I say in this matter, everybody is right and everybody is wrong. Because even the constitutional provisions did not anticipate that some of these things will happen. So you have clashing laws. So the conversation around amending our constitution is coming up again. The NMC cannot continue to be a toothless bulldog. We have every right to speak to the institutions of our country and make them strong. And because they are constitutional institutions, they can only be changed by the amendment of the Constitution. And as a people, we have a right to speak to those matters. So if it is about NCA shifting a bit of its mandate into the NMC's mandate, and then continue to run as it does, let's do that and protect our institutions constitutionally so they can also have the teeth to bite. So these will be my comments. I think we've had a wonderful session, and I'm sure the conversation should still go on. And I'm hoping that we will assemble again for the next Ghana Speaks when it comes up. And thank you so much for coming. God bless you.
Please grab a copy of the book. The author is here. He will give you a very nice. I've taken mine. Let's do that. Thank you. Thank you all very much for this engaging time.
Okay, so on behalf of the organizers of today's event, the Institute for Democratic Governance, the National Media Commission, and the Cybersecurity Authority, I want to thank everybody who, by your participation, made today's function successful. Just to remind you that this is one of many other programs that we are conducting before the elections in 5 weeks' time. So don't be very surprised if another invitation comes your way to come to either this place or some other place to attend another function being organized by IDEG on the elections. And there are quite a few coming up. But I want at this stage to wish all of you travel mercies wherever you are going. And I thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Jonah, and thank you to all of you. Please, photographers, could you please come around? Would like our dignitaries in the front rows, the first two front rows, to please come to the podium. Would like to have a group photograph. So our photographers, please come very quickly, come forward, and let's get them organized so we can have a group photograph. Thank you.
in agriculture must provide the basis for economic growth. And will be seen to be working.
free.